Hello, students. Welcome back. In our last class, we followed the food's journey right down to the stomach. But what happens after that? Today, we're going to continue this journey and look into the final and, the most crucial stages of digestion. This is where the real action happens.
So, let's start with a little question for you. After the stomach has done all its hard work, churning the food into a paste with acids and enzymes, you might think the job is over. But is it? Is digestion really complete at this point? Just take a moment to think about it.
Well, the answer is a definite no. In fact, the most important part of this whole journey is just about to begin. This paste, which now has a special name, we call it chyme, is about to enter the main arena. The place where digestion will finally be completed and our body can get all those essential nutrients from the food we eat.
All right, so let's see how we're going to cover this. To make things simple to follow, and, very important, easy for you to remember for your exams, we have a clear plan. We'll start with the small intestine, then we'll meet its chemical helpers. After that, we'll understand how nutrients are absorbed and then used by the body. And we'll finish up with the final step that happens in the large intestine. So, let's get started.
So, first up, the small intestine. That acidic chyme from the stomach now moves into this incredibly important organ. Now, don't let the name small fool you at all. It's actually the longest part of our alimentary canal. And this is the main stage where the complete digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats will finally take place.
But the small intestine doesn't do all this work alone. It gets very important help from two of its friends, the liver and the pancreas. They both send their own special juices or secretions to help with the job. Let's take a closer look at what these helpers do.
First, we have bile juice, which comes from the liver. Now, bile has two very, very important jobs. First, the food coming from the stomach is acidic, right? So bile makes it alkaline. This is needed so that the enzymes in the small intestine can work. Second, it takes the large fat globules and breaks them into smaller little droplets. This process has a very important name that you must remember for your exams. It's called emulsification.
Next up, we have pancreatic juice, which, as the name says, comes from the pancreas. This juice is full of powerful enzymes. For example, an enzyme called trypsin starts digesting proteins, and another one, lipase, works on those emulsified fats, the ones that bile just prepared, and breaks them down even more.
And for the final step, the walls of the small intestine itself release their own intestinal juice. This juice has the last set of enzymes that are needed to finish the job completely. They turn complex carbohydrates into simple glucose, proteins into amino acids, and fats into fatty acids and glycerol. Now, finally, all the nutrients are in their simplest forms, ready to be absorbed.
So let's just do a quick recap of the final products. This table is a perfect summary for you. Carbohydrates are finally broken down into glucose, proteins become amino acids, and fats are turned into fatty acids and glycerol. It is only in these simple forms that our body can absorb them. Okay, so the digestion part is now complete. But what happens next? All these valuable nutrients are ready, but they are still inside the small intestine. So the next big step is to move them from the intestine into our bloodstream so they can be sent all over the body. And this process, as we know, is called absorption.
So how does this absorption happen so well? Well, the secret is in the special design of the inner lining of the small intestine. It isn't smooth. Instead, it is covered in millions and millions of tiny finger-like projections. And these are called villi.
Now, this is a beautiful example of how structure is related to function in biology. And this is a very, very common exam question. How are villi adapted for absorption? These 3 points are your perfect answer. Number 1, they create a huge surface area for more absorption. Number 2, their walls are extremely thin, which allows nutrients to pass through easily. And number 3, they are filled with tiny blood vessels, which are ready to pick up the nutrients and transport them away.
So, the nutrients have been absorbed into the blood. Now what? Well, the bloodstream acts like a very efficient delivery system. It carries these essential molecules to every single cell in your body, from your brain cells all the way down to your toes. And what happens when these nutrients reach the cells? That is where assimilation begins. So assimilation is the process where the body's cells actually use these absorbed nutrients for what? For getting energy, for building new tissues, and for repairing old ones. This is a very important definition, so please make sure you have it noted down. Let's take a simple example. Think about the glucose. The cells take up this glucose and use it during respiration to release energy. That's the energy that powers everything you do. Walking, studying, even the energy you are using right now to listen to this lesson. See how nutrition is directly connected to respiration?
And what about the amino acids that we got from proteins? You can think of them as the body's building blocks, like little bricks. Your cells use them to build new proteins, which are needed for so many things, like muscle growth and repairing any damaged tissues in the body.
So we have digested the food, absorbed it, and assimilated the nutrients. Is the story over? Not quite. There's always some material in our food that cannot be digested. So what happens to that? Well, for this, we move to the final stop in our journey, the large intestine.
So the leftover, unabsorbed food moves from the small intestine into the large intestine. Now this organ has two final important jobs. First, its walls absorb most of the water from this material. This is very important to maintain our body's water balance. And once the water is removed, the remaining material becomes solid waste. The final step is removing this waste from the body through the anus, and this process is called digestion.
So as we've seen today, this entire journey of food is really a beautifully coordinated process. From the chemical digestion in the small intestine to the clever absorption by the villi and the final use of nutrients by our cells, every single step is designed so perfectly and is absolutely essential for us to live.
And that brings our journey to a close. But I'll leave you with one final question to think about. We've seen just how important these nutrients are for our body. So how do you think the health of your digestive system affects everything else your body does, from getting energy through respiration to growing bigger and stronger? Think about that connection until we meet in our next class. Thank you for your attention.